Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar, X Marks the Spot, Pinpointing the Meaning of Data Science Today, presented by CompTIA's Chief Technology Evangelist, Dr. James Stanger. My name is Mariela Salinas, and I will be assisting in moderating our session today. We will be in Zoom for today's webinar, and we will be sharing a copy of this recording with all of you in an email after the webinar. We do encourage participation throughout the webinar, so please use the chat or that Q&A option for a short Q&A after the presentation. Educate 360 is so excited to present this webinar today, so without further ado, I'll hand it over to you, Dr. Stanger.
Hey, thank you so much, Mariela. I really appreciate it. And special thanks to you at New Horizons. Really appreciate the opportunity here to be talking about Data X. And we called this X Marks the Spot, pinpointing the meaning of data science today, because that word is used in a lot of different ways. And we're going to kind of pin a few things down and kind of give you a pin on the map, as it were, on how you can get started or continue your data journey. And this is brought to you really by Data X. And that image there, see that picture there? That is Mont Blanc. I was recently near there. I took that picture, in fact, and some of my travels through through Europe and Eastern Europe. You know, folks, again, I'm James Stanger. Thank you so much. I've worked as a technologist, as a company president. I've done a lot of work with data over the years. And so I'm very pleased to be here. If you have any questions, you can join me on LinkedIn. Right, there's my LinkedIn information. Happy to talk with you. Also, jstanger@comptia.org. That's jstanger@comptia.org. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask any questions. Open up the webinar chat. If you see your little control screen for Zoom, click on the chat there, and I'd be happy to answer any questions. Greetings from Honolulu. Normally, I'm in Olympia, Washington. That's basically Seattle. But today I'm in Honolulu because I'm representing CompTIA at an event here called AFCEA TechNet Indo-Pacific. I'll be talking in fact, to people about data. One of the persons I'll be speaking with is Michael Young, who is over at Elastic, if you've ever heard of Elasticsearch before, one of the leaders in data. But CompTIA, we have over 4 million certifications awarded. We are worldwide, and I just wanted to mention, if you've never heard of CompTIA, we do what the industry tells us to do. We're a member-driven organization, so that whenever we come out with training, it's because we were told to do that. And we represent people from around the world. This eye chart of a slide here is meant to show, I've taken each of those pictures of people who are data specialists in the UK, people in Singapore, India, South Africa, you name it, Kuala Lumpur, and Nashville. So we basically talk with people worldwide. And I'm here to talk to you specifically, not just about tech, right? We have the 4 pillars of tech at CompTIA that we tend to talk about: infrastructure, development, security. We're going to talk about data on this particular presentation, specifically about Data X and the pathway. Now, before I get started on this, to give you some data points, to give some context about what it means to kind of pinpoint data, we thought we'd start with a poll to learn more about what you are up to and where you are. And that actually helps me kind of shift things around or kind of pinpoint this presentation to your interests. So without further ado, we got a poll going here. We'd like to know what your particular job role is, and you can go ahead and you can grab the QR code to answer that, or however you want to work it. Are you a manager of a data team, an IT pro? Looks like we are neck and neck with people who want to learn about being data analyst or data scientist. Look at that. And we have some IT professionals already in there. Looks like the people who want to be a data analyst are doing that. That's our first question. So thank you very much. That's very helpful. We have another question, do we not? Mariella? So thank you. It looks like the majority of us are looking just about what it means to be a data analyst and a data scientist. That's fantastic. Let's take a look at the next question. So most of you are looking to be a data analyst, and then we have some IT professionals there. How familiar are you with CompTIA's data pathway? That's something that's helpful as well. Looks like most folks are not at all familiar. So good, we'll be talking about this and how people are using the data pathway because it's 3 courses. That's the first thing, first bit of information. So some of you are familiar, but just a couple of you. Okay, so thank you. Let's go ahead and go with the next poll. So this is going to be very helpful. The next poll here is basically asking another question. If you are a team leader, what are some of the questions? Excuse me, what are some of the more important skills that are important for you and your team? Even if you're an individual, I'm curious what you feel are the most important skills there. That's what we're trying to ask. And it looks like we've got analyzing data, right, as the number one. That would be certainly appropriate. Data visualization is creeping up there. Identifying patterns. Okay, there we go. Collecting data. And just so you know, these results here, talking about like collecting data, analyzing data, visualizing data, you're looking at the data pathway already in these questions. So just give a sense there. So thank you for that. And I think we have Mariella, I think we have what, one more question? Is that right
I
for this?
actually think that
Or
was
is that
the
it?
last one. Yeah, you got
Okay.
no, no, you got it.
Who knew? I've never been much of a counter. That's why we have computers. So thank you, Mariella. I appreciate it.
Of
So
course.
folks, So folks, let's get some data points here and some differentiating points, okay, about what it means to start your pathway, okay? And yeah, I took each of those pictures. Those all happen to be from the UK. Some places, what, in the Yorkshire Dales, and one of those is in the Cornwall area. So the first thing about data science and the need for information. This is a quote I've always liked. This is a person from the medical industry. Dr. Butte is a medical doctor working out of the University of California, San Francisco. Very much a true thought leader having to do with healthcare. And basically saying hiding within those mounds of data is knowledge that could change the life of a patient or change the world. And I love that quote because it's all about unhiding things. It's all about unburying, right? Identifying, okay? Next quote here basically says it's easy to lie with statistics, but it's hard to tell the truth without them. And I realize that word statistics is not quite data, but you could probably just punch in that word data just fine, okay? So in other words, to keep your organization or yourself to understand what it means to be at true north, in other words, to know what the direction of anything is, data is our only way to do that. We can't rely on tradition. We can't rely on history necessarily. We've got to rely on what information that we can pull out of that data. And then this is a kind of a heady little quote, but this is a guy named Ludwig Wittgenstein. What a name. He was a philosopher, lived in the 20th century. And he's influenced a lot of thinking that you probably encounter. You don't realize it, but he's one of the main influencers in the world of thought. And he basically says problems are solved not by coming up with new discoveries. It's by assembling what we've already been familiar with. In other words, that's kind of another way of saying hiding within data is information that can help change the world. Okay. Now, why are data scientists important? To bring it into specifics. This is Luz Pereira on the top picture there. And then this is a bunch of data analysts living in Kuala Lumpur. And I want to bring out these examples because these folks are learning about data because organizations need data-driven decision making. They need people to do predictive analytics. They need people to make the organization's operations better. Process improvement. I don't care if it has to do in cybersecurity or in infrastructure like the cloud or in programming, right? It's data that is going to make our operations better. It's crunching that information. To get competitive advantage and upward career trajectory, it's always a nice thing for you as an individual. Those are many of the main drivers. One of the things, as I speak, for example, with government leaders, lately, the last 6 months, I've been speaking with a lot of government leaders around the world. And many times they'll use the phrase on mission or on target. And they're not talking about financially. They're meaning that are they really fulfilling the mission they've been given? So organizations all use data. They just kind of use them in different ways. Some, a for-profit will talk about profit and better decisions for that. Other people talk about, other organizations will talk about staying on goal. So it doesn't matter if you're a nonprofit, a government, or what have you. This is where it's at. And these are why we hire data scientists. And even though some people will say, well, things are kind of tough in terms of employment right now, um, maybe. I don't know. We're seeing some still really good trends here, but we're still seeing on the data science job market an increase. Okay, so the long-term trends are that employment is expected to grow by 35% from 2022 through 2032. So over that 10-year period, and we're into that now, it's 2024, we're still seeing growth. Okay, so median annual pay for data scientists, and this is a tricky number because this includes people who are data scientists in New York or Washington, D.C., as well as Southern Oregon, where I grew up. Okay, so that if you're living in Southern Oregon, trust me, as a data scientist, you're not going to make that kind of money, but it's still a higher type of salary, higher than IT workers. And IT workers tend to get a higher salary than the average worker. So there are about 168,000 data scientists employed in the US in 2022, and it's expected to reach 228,000. US employers posted more than 230,000 job postings for data scientists over a 12-month period in May of 2023. And right now, there are about 22,000 open job postings for data scientists just in the US. So forgive these US specific numbers, but I think it's really important. I'll be in the UK next week. These numbers tend to reflect themselves and have a bearing in what we're doing in the UK. In other words, what the need for data scientists around the world, for example. One of the reasons why we did get into data X, by the way, was because in Asia, we've been asked many, many times by our partners to get into data. And here's a quick plug. If you want to get monthly information about what the job market looks like, whether it be about IT jobs, help desk to cybersecurity, to cloud, to programming, or data, you can go to what's called the CompTIA Tech Jobs Report, and that URL is there. And this slide deck will be giving this out to you so you can check that out. When it comes to the job market, who's hiring? Now, you'll notice number one there is Meta, right? The Facebook folks. Organizations such as Apple, Amazon. But notice it's not just tech sector folks. Johnson & Johnson, they'll say, yeah, we use technology every day, right? Of course. But Johnson & Johnson is not a tech sector company, they're kind of healthcare, right? Humana in health. Walmart, they do retail. Sure, they have an e-commerce presence. I mean, a huge one, right? But they're not a tech company. Deloitte is consulting. TikTok's a tech company. Booz Allen. These are the folks that need it. And notice across the nation, you have Washington, D.C. Crunching data because there's a whole lot of government and a whole lot of integrators there. But New York, San Francisco, you can see the usual suspects there. So I just wanted to give you some data points about the relevant statistics, the relevant demand, and the primary job roles. Now, as you take a look at the primary job roles of data scientist, quantitative analyst, machine learning, these are job roles based on the idea of a data scientist. Now, that's different than a data analyst. I noticed from the poll that people said, hey, I'm here to kind of learn more about how data works. Now, here's the deal. People will use the term data analyst and data scientist interchangeably. This happens from a lot of times organizations when they're trying to sell something, they'll like become a data scientist when they're really saying, we're going to make you a data analyst. And there's a difference between these two things. A data analyst, let's put it this way, for every 100 data analysts, there will be one data scientist, okay? Data scientist far more in depth. And I'll explain this in such a way. For example, to become a data analyst with Data Plus, it's something that if you have a bit of a background and a little bit of background in computing, some background in understanding maybe where data can come from, like a spreadsheet, right? Or a database or something, we can get you up to speed on something like that in a matter of weeks to months. When it comes to data scientists, there's an amount of training that's going to happen over a period of months, even years. Okay, so Data X is the top of the pathway. Data Plus begins the pathway. So data plus, data sys plus, and data X. But I just wanted to point out that the primary job roles here, we love to rename things when it comes to not just CompTIA, but the industry. A quantitative analyst is a data scientist, a machine learning person who focuses on AI. They're nevertheless people who are involved in data science. Now, where do you get started on this? Okay, so let me see if I can explain the pathways a bit more clearly with this slide. And that's a picture of folks who started in the IT side of things. And some of those three folks that I'm doing that selfie with, those are on a base at JBLM in Washington State, are looking to maybe do some data. They're people that got into or looking to get into data. They are already IT workers. That's what they do. And they are kind of looking, maybe I'll go into cybersecurity, right? But data is something that's really interesting to them. And I'm bringing this up because some of these folks that you'll see, let's say from the military, they might be working in artillery or something, but they got an IT background. But even if you don't have an IT background, you can still get into data. My point is there's lots of different ways that you can get started here. So if you want to check this out, Data Plus, you could argue, is at the beginning of the journey. It's basically where you learn how to work with what's called structured data. Structured data, if you've ever looked at data inside of a spreadsheet, that's structured data. And the idea is that you can learn about how to visualize that, do a pivot table in a spreadsheet, for example, right? That's the beginnings of data analytics. Once you've taken Data Plus, you can then go along and deepen your knowledge and skills. And this is where you could say, well, maybe I'll jump over to Data Sys Plus. Now, Data Sys Plus is something that doesn't necessarily have to come after Data Plus, but it happens. Data Sys Plus is a database cert. Teaches you how to work with relational and non-relational databases. So the idea being, though, that you can start this journey wherever it kind of makes sense for you. So if some people will say, well, I started in the IT side of things, well, then they can learn more about data and become a data specialist. You'll see somebody later on in this presentation who did just that. But some people, they wouldn't know IT particularly, and they decide, I want to become a Data Plus person because I want to start my journey. But what happens is no matter if you came in through and became a database administrator. Years ago, I started a friendship with someone who was a database administrator. That person no longer administers databases in the cloud for Oracle. That person is now a data analyst, is kind of moved on to Data Plus, but then moved on to the equivalent of Data X. So there are a lot of different ways in which you can go from a tech newbie to becoming more tech capable to becoming a tech expert. And these three courses, Data Plus kind of gets you started really. Data Sys Plus is about databases. Data X is about being a data scientist. Case in point, Prague, she's fantastic. She's really cool. She is the chief data scientist at Hitachi. And her job is not to be a data analyst, right? Data analysts work with data that's already been structured. They're still very important. We need lots of them. But Prague is a data scientist, and her job is basically to create the rules and the processes. She has talents in many different areas. She's very good at coding. She understands how different systems work together to capture data. She's able to put together policies and procedures that allow data analysts to excel at what they do. And that's really important to think about. Michael Young, on the other hand, is somebody who's a solutions architect. He's not, I would not say, a data scientist, but he's somebody who works for Elastic. He is somebody who knows data analytics very well and a specific piece of it. I'm giving you this example because Prague is somebody who is a data X person, right? Michael Young is at the data plus kind of side of things right now. But in other areas having to do with cybersecurity and things like that, he's an absolute authority in the field. But I just want to point out some people's journeys, some more journeys. Tim Niles. He started on the IT side of things. Not everybody does. A plus, Network Plus, Security Plus many years ago. Ended up working for Cisco in their HR department. And that started because people in HR, they love to crunch data. That's really important for them, right? Many people who are HR workers are Data Plus certified. Well, Tim is also Data Plus certified. Tim basically started as an IT support person. He kept going into the HR department and saying, "Oh, you need to know where the data is stored and for the intranet or where certain databases are. I know where those are." And then he would show them where that data is, and they would start crunching information out of that data. Well, Tim basically was intrigued by that. And so he became a data analyst himself. He's now over at Central Michigan University, who's doing enterprise application work. The reason what he's doing is basically helping create applications to help students do their job, right? What better person to do that than somebody who knows data? Because if you're going to process students and work with students, it's all about the data and finding out what students are doing and how they're doing it. Another person, Alfredo Rodriguez. Alfredo's a really cool guy. He's the program lead who is looking over all of the learning, the workforce for the United States Department of Defense. He works with cool people like Matt Eisner and Mark Gorak over there for the 8140 program. Alfredo is a data junkie. He loves it. He is very much at the Data Plus going into the data X kind of journey. He got started because he had questions about, well, how many people have certain cybersecurity information, knowledge about pen testing? Where do they live and all that? And he started taking a look at the data, and he realized he needed to learn the data lifecycle to know where data is collected, to where to capture it, and how to mine data. Data mining is so important because it means that you can sift through information and kind of, how should I put this, eliminate outliers. There might be interesting data, but it's not the main idea. How can you determine what is something that is an outlier and less important and the main body of data? And how can you visualize that? And Alfredo will also say, how can you secure it? Because you have to put the policies in place to make sure that if you've gathered data and turned it into information, can you keep it safe so that nobody can break into it? So there's so many different faces and people that we know at CompTIA. Here's Harold Booth, for example, over at NIST in the United States. There's Robin Hunt, a fantastic data analyst who's working towards the data X side of things. Now, specifically when it comes to data X, this is a certification, an education program that's been around now since July, right? And with any of our certifications, they're created by thousands of subject matter experts. We don't just have one or two mad scientists or a little group of people that get together and kind of talk theoretically about what's going on. We have a process where we can distill information about any topic. In this case, we've talked about advanced data, and we're talking about data science. And these are the 5 domains that you need to learn as a data scientist. Our Data Plus education program also has domains, but they're similar to this, but they are not as in-depth as what you find with Data X. With Data X, you're going to be learning about the, how should I put this, the ways to build policies, to build processes, and to model data. And a data scientist is somebody who doesn't work with just structured data, things that have already been kind of lined up. They work with unstructured data. They kind of try to bring order to chaos, and they make it possible for data analysts to do their job. And this is why they need to understand statistics and mathematics, for example. That's the first domain. Second domain, the ability to come up with models that can do some kind of prediction that's better than just flipping a coin or putting it all on red in Vegas, okay? A data scientist has to understand what it means to work with artificial intelligence because data feeds the AI beast. That's what the machine learning is. So those are the domains. And these are people who have a unique understanding of data science. This is really key. We've noticed at CompTIA, there's programs out there that will say, hey, become a data scientist, when they really mean be a data analyst. At CompTIA, we're very specific because objectives are created by thousands of working data scientists. When we say data science, we mean data X. When we say data analyst, we follow the industry because that's what the industry tells us to do. And if you're a data analyst, you go do data plus. This is because it's all about real world application of skills. We don't spend much time in Theoryville. because this is created by industry and for industry. So the first domain here, and this is something I was with a group of people who were learning data analytics, the idea of being able to apply the mathematics. And these folks were learning about what it means to use mathematics to test whether a hypothesis is accurate or not. It kind of boils right down to that. Okay, you put a hypothesis out there. Is there any data to support it? Here's somebody just learning about what it means to design and iterate a particular model. Okay, and then once that model proves to be accurate or not accurate, how can you communicate that? And we were talking about the ways in which we can communicate those results. This person is Andre Jordan. I've met him a long time ago. I saw him just a few weeks ago in Europe. He happens to live in Romania. He does a lot of security analytics for huge organizations, huge firms around the world. His job is basically, he's very interested in what it means to, in a practical way, use machine learning or artificial intelligence as a help to security analysts. He said right now, most AI is not as good as flipping a coin. His job is to learn more about that, to make sure that we use artificial intelligence in such a way that we have really smart assistants. Augmented decision making. Well, a data scientist helps do that by saying, okay, here's this thing called machine learning. Here's how the data works. And Andre, when I was asking him, well, how are you going to create this augmented model? He said, well, that's why I'm working with data scientists. Those people are Data X certified. Here's Marisol Angelini. She works for Coca-Cola. She's on the board of directors, in fact. And we were talking at one point about what it means to properly acquire data. And this is really the operations and the ways in which a data scientist understands, yeah, here's where you get the data, here's how you do it securely, and here's how you, as you mine the data and wrangle that data, it's kind of the same thing to me. You wrangle the data or you mine it. What are some of those best practices? See, it's the data scientist's job to talk to the data analysts to say, hey, you're working for me. Let me show you what some of the best procedures are in this situation. So that's the fourth domain of Data X. And the fifth domain specifically is how do you optimize your processes? How can you basically, as you apply data science to specific concepts and specific work roles, how can you make sure you do that in a secure way? And these are people from around the world that I've gotten to know. Let's see, that folks where the peace sign's in front. I'm doing a peace sign there. They're in Spain. And then there's Louis Kremen from Lumify, who I've worked with in Australia. Great guy. Hey, Louis. We have people around the world who are learning these concepts. Now, when it comes to the course structure here, the idea is that we teach the data science lifecycle. Check that out, where you can analyze a business problem, collect the data, prepare the data, and then explore it. We have data plus to teach people how they can do that kind of crunching, but it's the data science people, the data X people, who basically say, here's where the machine learning is and where the deep learning is, et cetera. Well, folks, I went through very quickly this. If you have any questions, you can type it in to the webinar chat window. I don't see any specific questions right now, but I want to, before I thank you, we have one last poll question to give to you because I think I'm talking us to the top of the hour here. As this poll comes up, I definitely want to thank you for your time, but if you have a timeline, do you have a timeline for starting a course for yourself or for your team? So it looks like people over the next couple of months and some long-term interest. Okay, that's great. Now, here's the deal, folks. The thing that I really want to point out to you is that if you're interested in learning about data, one of the first things that you could look into is understanding what that is. And we'd be happy to talk with you, the folks at New Horizons or what have you, would be happy to talk to you about what it means to get started. It might be that you're ready for Data X. That's very much an advanced certification. Might be you're ready for Data Plus. Might be that you're a database person, you're interested in that. We are ready to help you with that. So there's the sharing, thank you. Looks like there's some people have a long-term to a medium-term interest. When it comes to the pathway, I suggest you take a look at what New Horizons has to offer. Also, you can go to CompTIA and check out, you can go to explore.comptia.org. You can go to New Horizons where you can identify exactly where you need to go. You can also take a look, talk with New Horizons consultants, and they'll talk to you specifically about you need to go there. Oscar, Kevin, thank you very much. I hope this information was useful to you. Thank you for your time. There's my email, also another email from Garrett. Garrett does a fantastic learning consulting work in conjunction with New Horizons, but we would be happy to help you in any way we can to learn more about that. So Jesse, Kevin, Sharonetta, Oscar, Kevin, I really appreciate all of your time on the call there. And I'll turn the time over to you, Mariella.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Dr. Stanger. That was a lot of
Anytime.
good info, and I think that we actually did have a couple questions if we can hang back for about a minute or two.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Yeah, so we had a couple here from John. I think he referenced that data science, like job growth, and he noticed
Mm.
that there was 30% growth. Was that year over year growth, maybe that you have
Yeah.
that?
Yeah.
Yep,
And
that
my
was year
understanding
over
is
year.
that yeah, you're up to go. We see more need for data than in a lot of areas. And it's interesting. For example, I'll use cybersecurity. There's the concept of a cybersecurity analyst. Notice the word analyst. Those skills that a good cybersecurity analyst have are very similar to the skills found in Data Plus, and certainly some areas of Data X. My point being is that when it comes to IT and cybersecurity, um, analyzing data sets is really a key skill, but it doesn't just apply to IT. Completely outside of IT, whether you're in marketing, right? It's the ability to analyze a data set, right? If you're not in marketing, if you're in sales leadership, okay, it's the same sort of thing. So this is a level of skill. When I say this, data plus, even elements of data X, these are skills that apply across the board for anybody in no matter what particular job role you might be in. It might have nothing to do directly with tech, but data analytics is always going to be a relevant skill set. If you have that, it sets you apart from a great number of people in the field.
100%. I think we can all say we need to make data-driven decisions.
Oh man,
Awesome.
yeah, yeah.
Awesome. All right. Well, we have a couple more here, but I am so mindful of everyone's time. So if you gotta jump to lunch or anything else, please go right ahead. There will be a recording after, so you can definitely watch this back. And just again, to get to these other questions, we had another one here. Missed the beginning part, but what was the definition for data X? I guess like a summary or an overview.
Sure. Data X is basically designed to demonstrate that somebody has the level of skill to call themselves a data scientist. The term data analyst and data scientist can sometimes be used interchangeably. They're not really, they're not things that should be used interchangeably. A data analyst works with structured data. A data analyst for their skill set is not at the level of a data scientist. Data X is for data science. Data Plus is for a data analyst. And that's not to minimize what data analytics is for at the Data Plus level. That's a very important set of skills, but it's just not as advanced as Data X.
Excellent. Yeah, that's great insight to have moving forward. And then
Mhm.
we had one last question here. What is the time commitment for DY0-001? What does that roadmap look like?
Okay, that roadmap basically in terms of time here, this one here, it depends on how your level of skill works. If you're somebody who has been doing data analytics for some time, this is something that you could do in a more boot camp style. When I say boot camp style, very quick, right? But if you're somebody who's just getting started, you're not going to be ready for data X. You're going to be wanting to do something like data plus. So again, it swings. There are various levels of capability. I'm somebody who's at more or less a data a plus level. It would take me a considerable period of time, something of me personally, a year of hard work to get to something like this. But there are other people, if you've been working as a data analyst for years, this is something that you could do in a matter of weeks to months.
Fantastic info to have. Absolutely. I believe that that brings us to the end of the question. So I just want to thank you so much again for all of your time today, Dr. Stanger. And I just wanted to
Anytime, man. Anytime.
Thank you. And I just wanted to let our audience know that again, we will be sharing a recording with all of you in an email after the webinar. So if you weren't able to watch the full session or hear the Q&A, definitely check that out. Thank you all so much for joining us. And again, thank you so much, Dr. Stanger. I hope that everyone here
Anytime.
enjoys the rest of your day. And thank you all so much for joining us.
Be
Alrighty.
careful.
Alrighty. See you all very soon in the classroom. Bye now.